Good afternoon. Hey, there's a feedback. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Okay. I'm sorry, there was a little feedback, so I think we have enough participants to start now, and we have people over on Zoom, so
Over on YouTube.
over on YouTube, yeah. So we can begin. Okay, so good afternoon. I'm Christina Doherty, Commuting Student Advisor with the UMONA Commuting Student Office, and I'd like to welcome you all to our International Men's Day Forum. International Men's Day. So with us, we have our host and our panelists, as well as our Student Services and Development Manager, Ms. Larman. So let me begin by introducing who is here. Hold on. Okay, so we have Angela Harris from Mona Social Services. She's the Community Development Program Manager. We have Mrs. Larman she's the Student Services and Development Manager with the Commuting Students Office. We have Kavi Brown, he'll be doing a poem for us. And we have our panelists, the lovely Mr. Chad Rattray, Appleton Garden, and Ado Charrington. Also, we have our host who will be doing our welcome and remarks, Donald Oliver. So because we're a bit over time, I think we're just going to start and introduce Mr. Oliver. So I'm going to do a little bio on Mr. Oliver. So our host, Donald Oliver, is one of the leading orators of live football and cricket matches in the Western Hemisphere, who started his journalistic career at 17 years old. In 2009, he received the Prime Minister's National Youth Awards for Excellence in Journalism. And in 2015, he followed it up with the Hugh Crossgill Raymond Sharp Award for Sports Journalism in Jamaica, an award reserved for the best sports reporter in electronic media. While working at CVM, he co-produced the 2014 FIFA World Cup. He also co-produced Barack Obama's trip to Jamaica in 2015. And while currently working at Sportsmac, he co-produced the 2018 FIFA World Cup. Mr. Oliver is married with a child, and he's no stranger to working with the men of Jamaica. So please welcome our lovely host, Mr. Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Really an honor being here. I'm actually thrilled to be a part of this engagement of minds and hearts on this International Men's Day and this forum in particular, the theme being making a positive difference to the well-being and lives of men and boys. I'd like to publicly acknowledge Mona Social Services and Miss Angela Harris, who is the Community Development Program Manager, as well as Miss Carisha Lamond, my friend and sister who invited me here today. Carisha, of course, is a Student Services and Development Manager with particular responsibility for commuting students. What a time to be alive. What a unique position to be in. 2020 has been a nightmare, one would say, for the world as we knew it. One may even call it apocalyptic. But the thing about the apocalypse is that the real meaning of it is indicating new beginnings and revealing what is new. And it's interesting that we're having a discussion in going back to the basics of encouraging our boys and our young men to embrace responsibility. And it's going to be interesting what our speakers will be saying this afternoon on those topics and how we are going to be re-engaging those minds for our young men to accept responsibility to be the builders once again for our community and for our nation at large. So really looking forward to that discussion a little bit later on. But before those presentations and the discussion, I'd like to invite Miss Angela Harris, as I said before, Mona Social Services Community Development Program Manager. She'll be uh, bringing greetings.
Oh, Lord.
Oh, hi everybody. Sorry for the delay. I had some technical glitches. Yes, our host, Mr. Donovan, Oliver, my colleague Carisha Larmand, our great panelists, and to our students, our male students at large who have been joining us via Zoom or the YouTube link. It is indeed a pleasure of the Mona Social Services, headed by our own Executive Director, Dr. Olivine Burke, to partner with the Commuting Students Office to bring off what I called a very momentous occasion. It is indeed an occasion that we're so happy to be a part, because when you hear of men, we usually read them as having the highest number in the crime statistics. Men and boys, fall prey to gang. They're usually the highest number in terms of being part of gangs or crews. They go through their own depression. A number of men have been committing suicide. So when we talk about men, sometimes we see them as not only being marginalized, but they form part of the statistics that speak negativity. And today it is indeed very momentous, as I said before, because we're taking the time out. I know every day is Men's Day, we should celebrate them, but to know that we're taking the time out to highlight them and to recognize them. And whoso, we have some fitting young men who have been doing well here in the Jamaican landscape, who will be, sharing their own story and to help to positively influence the young minds that we have here on campus, and who will go out to impact the wider world. So we're very heartened at the Mona Social Services to have partnered with the Commuting Students Office, who I should commend Ms. Larmand and her team for making this happen. It happened overnight, I should say, but we look forward to a wonderful time with some enriching discussion as we seek to highlight and uplift our men. I have a son, but I know that he will be positively impacted through these media. So thanks again for the partnership, and I look forward to an encouraging and inspiring discussion. Thank you.
All right, now I'm going to invite Carisha to say a few words. I've known Carisha for quite a long time, and I know that she's not going to be spending too much time in speaking because she doesn't like the limelight as such. But Carisha, a few words, please.
Thank you so much, Donald. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Miss Angela Harris, Mona Social Services Community Development Program Manager. Miss Simone Williams, the Student Service and Development Manager from Irving Hall, is joining us as well. Miss Christina Doherty, Commuting Student Advisor. To you, I greet you well, and I hope you are in the best of health and you're all keeping safe. Donald Oliver, my friend, host and senior sports producer at Sportsmax, my panelists, three good men in society, Mr. Chadiratri, Mr. Apollyon Gordon, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Mr. Ado Charrington, and gentlemen in the audience. Happy International Men's Day to you all. I'd also like to extend greetings to the women, the ladies joining in this conversation as well. Today, more than any other day, the world paused at some point in time, to not only recognize men as positive change agents in our society, but also to reinforce and promote everyday working, honest and positive men, who act as role models. And not only that, we're looking for movie stars or athletes as our models, but we want to now celebrate these regular men, positive contribution to society, their community, family, relationships, childcare, and just their environment. Today I am very happy, and Angela speaks to how, we pull this off really quickly, to just having all these young men, speaking and, kind of pouring into other men what we want to see in our society in Jamaica right now. So I just want to implore and, encourage all the young men listening now to just listen to these powerful regular men in society. You know, they're your peers, they work in education, you know, just look at them as your models and be the model in your community from henceforth. So, you know, I just encourage all to listen and take heed and, you know, just be the change that you want to see in society. Thank you very much, Donald. Back to you.
Thank you very much, Carisha Larman, reporting from her office. All right, so here's the thing. Before we get into the meat of the matter in terms of the presentations and, of course, the discussions, um, we tend to have a flair for the dramatic, right? And we're going to go right into it. I'm going to invite Mr. Kavid Brown, who is a commuting student. Um, he has a poem that he would like to share with us. So, Kavid, it's all yours.
Hi everybody, happy International Men's Day, man. So I'm Kavid Brown. I'm the Deputy PR for SciTech and also the PRO for the University Dramatic Arts Society. And today's piece is entitled This Is Me, written by Desmond Dennis. This is me, a little ghetto youth fulfilling society's prophecies over my life. This is me, sitting in a courtroom waiting for you pass your judgment. Gruff, waste man, him workless like him pooper. And it's rough because all my years I avoided becoming my father. My father taught me many lessons, but it was the lessons on how to love that stick with me the most. My father loved hard, bloody, fierce. For the longest while, he couldn't understand it. Did just hate him for all light. He used to love my mother with him belt, him whip him guava stick. He just really couldn't understand it. He used to hold her around her neck so tight, squeeze it till her eyes popped out in amazement and wondered. And when him let her go, she would have just bawl and cough and choke, at which point she would have threatened for left. And then he would have just love her with him belt, him guava stick and even him whip. But I really just couldn't understand it until the time come for me have my own woman. When me just have love her with my belt, my guava stick and my whip. Because she wouldn't stop nagging me about why the money not dead here. Why me up on the street with the killing them, why the gun go peshang wang wang wang. So me just hold her around her neck so tight, squeeze it till her eyes pulp out in amazement and wondered. So Your Honor, Simia, this is me. Lessons in love.
Thank you very much, Kavid, for that. One of the things that stands out for me in that expression of the dramatic arts is that it's a cycle. Life is a cycle. But of course, cycles can be broken. We speak a lot about what is considered to be a generational curses. And I guess what can be a part of that discussion is how do we break that cycle? How do we break the wheel? How do we create a new dimension in what we do in helping our young men? Because if we don't intervene soon, I think we may be going down a path of no return. But thank you for that, Kavid. As we're heading straight into the presentations now, here's how it's going to go. We have three presenters. Each of them will be making a presentation. And at the end of each presentation, there's going to be a discussion. I suppose it's going to be a really lively discussion. You may hear a few controversial things, but the point is that we're aiming always for solutions. So let's get into the meat of the matter, introducing our first speaker. And it's going to be Chad Rattray, who is a youth leader and advocate who has championed the youth development agenda since the age of 15. This can be seen through his service at the school, community, and national level, displayed by the organizations he has served in. He has been recognized for his national contribution by receiving the Prime Minister's National Youth Awards of Excellence for Nation Building and being nominated for the Governor General's Achievement Award. Chad is currently pursuing a Bachelor of Laws degree at the University of the West Indies, Mona. He's a youth leader and motivational speaker. Chad has achieved 18 CXC subjects. In 2018, he was elected to serve as Kingston and St. Andrews Deputy Youth Mayor. Chad was then selected out of 400 applicants to serve as a youth member of parliament for East Rural St. Andrew. Here he engaged the young people within his constituency and placed focus on the importance of revamping youth clubs across the area, which I believe is absolutely critical. In the sitting of the National Youth Parliament of Jamaica, Chad was selected as the Youth Minister of Education, Youth and Information. And by all indication, he has not resigned. In May of 2019, he conducted several free marathon classes, helping students across Jamaica in Caribbean studies and sociology. Over 3,000 students across the parishes have benefited from online marathons through Instagram Live and attending physical classes held at the University of Technology, Jamaica. In 2019, June 2019, Chad founded the Jamaica Millennium Vision for Youth organization, where he serves as president. This is a youth organization which has spiraled into a national movement for youth, which seeks to empower young people across Jamaica through advocacy and outreach. The organization is directly aligned to the Sustainable Development Goals and Vision 2030. He's a Christian and he takes pride in his responsibility as the president of his church's youth ministry. Chad sees his future in law and international relations, government, entrepreneurship, and philanthropy. The former Kingston College head boy is first at bat, and I'm sure he takes full responsibility for his team winning the Manning Cup for the first time in over 3 decades a couple of years ago, and it was under his watch as head boy. Chad, it's over to you, man.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
We're hearing you now.
Wonderful. Good afternoon, everybody. I am so happy to be here. Of course, we have to do the protocols. So our host, our distinguished host I'm hearing, Mr. Donald Oliver, Miss Carisha Larman, Student Services and Development Manager, my fellow panelists, Mr. Gordon and Mr. Sherrington, and I do believe we have as well Miss Simone Williams, Irving Hall, SSDM, and we have a host of important people. As a matter of fact, all of our young men that are on this afternoon, you are all our distinguished guests, and of course the ladies as well, can't exclude them. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and happy International Men's Day. Miss Larman had reached out to me and I said, that I would definitely, I wanted to participate because this is indeed a very important day. And why is the day important? Is because one, we're celebrating men across Jamaica, the Caribbean, and the world. Two, to highlight and appreciate our young men who are our brothers, our fathers, our sons, our nephews, and our cousins. To reflect on the contributions of our men to society in whether it be sports, athletics, or whatever other sport you have, academia, entrepreneurship, and politics, and spanning across several other fields, of course. But importantly, to introspect, and I think these issues are going to come up, to introspect on our shortcomings as well. Because yes, it is good to say that our men have achieved a lot, but we also have to recognize that there is far more that we can do and far more that we are not doing. So we have to look on the shortcomings and the contribution to social ills and issues. Men have a pivotal role to play in national development, and that is the truth. And the theme today is a man's health is a man's wealth. That's an international, that's a theme for Jamaica. And that is so true. And I want to focus on health a bit because, we have the pandemic and COVID-19 has really changed a lot of things. But when it comes on to our men, a lot of our men aren't wearing masks, are not practicing the protocols. It's almost as if we have had this long-standing belief that we can't get sick. We are immune because we're man, we're tough, we're strong. And that's a narrative that we have to change. We as men, we have to take more interest in our health. And next example, prostate cancer. How many of us have gone to screen for prostate cancer? I'm pretty much sure not many. So our health has to be a priority. And the next part of health, mental health, which a lot of our men don't believe that it exists, meaning that they don't, okay, yes, everybody's going to gym for those of us who do go to the gym. But when you talk about mental health, it's almost as if there's a stigma that is attached to men having mental health. And we don't believe that, or we should show our emotions, we should treat our mental capacity and our mental health as important as our physical. So we have to rechange and we have to rethink how we view our health. But back to the whole conversation, the theme for today in particular is making a positive difference to the well-being and lives of men and boys. I'm not here on the panel as, oh, I am Charatri, or all other panelists. We're not here as that. We're there as a brethren, and we're having a conversation because it's a conversation that is needed. A conversation, a long-standing conversation as relates to, how we celebrate and how we introspect as men. We all have the capacity and the ability to make a positive difference. As a matter of fact, I was on Instagram and I received a voice note from a young lady who I know well, and she was like, "Happy International Men's Day, Chad." And I was like, "What?" I wasn't even expecting because I still see myself as a young man, I still see myself as a youth. But she said, no, is that you don't have a lot of young men that you can physically see with your eyes that are doing, much. And as relates to, their community, doing work in their communities, doing work in school. And if you look on the figures over the years, our enrollment, meaning males being enrolled to university, is far less than our women counterpart. Not bashing us, of course, we celebrate that. But we also need to recognize that there are systemic and fundamental issues that we have to sort out as relates to our men. And we all, those of us who are on this platform, it means that we are making a difference. The mere fact that you're here means that you're making a difference. Because follow the crowd who don't believe that they need to come to forums, they don't need to come to functions. You are a part of meaning you're the real youth. We are the real men here on this call today. And I must applaud everybody who came out. And we have the capacity. I mean, it's not above our capacity, and our capability to really influence and impact change. And that's where I'm going to be finishing. We as men, we have a pivotal role to play in national development. Our women are counting on us. Our schools are counting on us. Our institutions, government and private sector and entrepreneurship, all of these sectors are depending on us to play our part in the advancement of the whole human race. And that's why I like the theme level up, because I always use it in most of my speeches. Level up, because level up starts with self, looking at how you can be a better person, and we all can be, even me, I believe I can do more, I can be a better person. Why don't we all take that charge and be somebody better? Level up then moves from self to how we can level up community. And our men are missing from the community, our men are missing from the households. And then when we ask, and then we wonder why we have so many social problems, why we have so many social issues. How many articles have we read? And it says that the biggest issue is male absenteeism in the household. We have the statistical data, we have the proof, we have the research. What are we going to do about it? That is it. And it starts with, even if it's a handful of good men left in Jamaica, even if it's a handful of good men in your community, the mere fact that you're good and you are interested in the development of yourself, your family, and your country, then you can give, and we can all start this type of movement. I mean, when I look at, and Miss Lyman, I want to tell you this, is that when I'm actually doing some of the projects that I do, the amount of young men who run come and say, Chad, how can I get involved? So sometimes it does mean that they just need an example. They just need to just see somebody doing it, and people do it. That's how revolution started. That's how we're going to really change and level up Jamaica. But I won't go over my 50 minutes because I don't want to be a typical Jamaican. So let me stop there. So thank you guys for having me, and I really look forward to the panel discussion. Over back to you, Mr. Host.
Thank you very much, Chad. I really appreciate that presentation, and yeah, I'm actually looking forward to the discussion a little bit later on, just to add to several of those points that we heard. But I'm going to be moving right along, and up next is Lennon Gordon, who is the acting program coordinator at the Vocational Training Development Institute (VTDI), which has the oversight and responsibility for the ICT department and its brand of degree programs. He is also an adjunct lecturer at the University of Technology, Jamaica, within the School of Technical and Vocational Education. Mr. Gordon's main objective is to become prolific in facilitating learning and nation building through social and infrastructural development. He has worked as a consultant and an expert for several non government organizations in the areas of technical vocational education, training, social and community infrastructural development. Mr. Gordon's current activities and contributions to personal development includes having the rank of a major within the St. Patrick's Rangers, which is a non-governmental youth-led organization building the capacities of youth in vulnerable communities with disaster risk reduction management skills to promote more resilient neighborhoods. In 2017, Mr. Gordon was awarded Educator of the Year by the Joint Committee for Tertiary Education. His educational philosophy is transferring knowledge which can contribute to purposeful actions towards positivity. Mr. Gordon, this is your time.
Good, good afternoon, one and all. Good afternoon. Let me first say Happy International Men's Day to all the men that are here currently um, on this platform or will be tuning in on another time. Thank you to the organizers for inviting me. It is indeed a wonderful pleasure to speak on a forum like this. My host, Oliver, Donald Oliver, my fellow panelists, Chad Ratchery and Aldo Sherrington. Um, Thank you, thank you, thank you. The theme that we're looking on here is making a positive difference to the well-being and lives of men and boys, and it is a theme that is well received by me in my heart, and it's a theme that I can say that transcend across the mind and the heart of many persons. And I will just look on this theme really quick in two folds. Just early on, the presenter that did the piece, that did the dramatic piece, a lot of persons made us listen to it and brush it off, but it was very short, but there was so much depth. There's so much depth to it. There's so much depth to it. He spoke of, not say him, but the literature spoke of seeing his father, seeing his father doing such an act to his mother, and he didn't understand it until he himself have in a situation where he's in his own relationship, which is fast forward to adulthood, and still not understand it and translate that same action to to his same relationship. And that spells something that a lot of persons don't really realize, that even with men, most with men, men emulate, men learn from what they see. Men learn from what they see. And that is why at times you will see guys on a corner, you find persons, the young boys gravitate to that, because that is what is prominent. And in looking at the theme again, making a positive difference to the well-being and lives of men and boys. And yes, as my colleague Chad earlier made mention, that yes, in society there are so many men out there that is on that ladder, and they have paved the way, whether it be sports, may it be politics, education, and it is out there. But how much of that is being promulgated? We often, oftentimes we see the negative aspect of it, being up, the negative side. We started off this year with so many domestic violence, so many. I remember within a span of about 30 days, there's about 9 persons die because of domestic violence. And it is time I lend my voice, and let us have that conversation. Let us change the narrative. Let us change that narrative. Let us have that conversation. And I speak today with my opening argument, as well as with my panelists, is that changing the narrative by altering our perspective. And the two set of persons I want to speak to are the persons who are there, the person who have already established themselves, or you are on your way to establishing yourself. Remember to light a candle before you curse that darkness. Light someone else's candle. There's always an awesome opportunity when you can light someone else's candle. And I'm talking about a mentoring relationship. Pour into someone else. It does wonder. It does awesome wonder. And that is one way how we can make a positive difference to the well-being of our men and boys. And I lend my voice to the persons who are coming up, the young men who are coming up. Just as how the presenter in his piece, he made mention about them call him Croft, them call him waste man. They now come out to nothing. And many of us growing up, I for one, my ears were heard some of those things growing up. But because the mindset I had, not by my own strength, I decided that, guess what, I am not going to be this Croft that you explain I'm not going to be this waste man. I'm not going to come out to nothing at all. And that is why we say we have to change the narrative. I speak to the young boys and the younger men coming up, is to ask yourself that question: how do you see yourself? How is it that you see yourself? And it could not be these negative connotation that person stick on you. Let us reach to a stage where we strip away that label. And even though I am saying this, it is nothing easy, believe me, because oftentimes we are quick to believe things what people say about us than what we say about ourselves. When that seed is planted and person say, you now come out to nothing at all. Especially if it's somebody that you look up to, especially if it was a teacher, even if it was your parents, you now come out to nothing at all. And that is what persons start to believe. And I hope we can lead into the conversation today, where we strip away those societal labels, right? And let us be very honest. Let us be very honest. The next point I want to get into when we start to get into the panel discussion is for these young men, these young boys, to find opportunities in the midst of the chaos. And I use the word chaos because chaos there is not just a literal state of chaos, but your situation. You know your reality, I know my reality. And I may be talking to you right now, and you might say, boy, Mr. Gardner, but you don't know what me I go through. And yes, I'm going to paint it as chaos because you're the one that going through it. But guess what? There's always an opportunity within it. Sometimes we focus on how we feel about the situation and the situation itself, and we don't realize that there is an opportunity within the midst of that. I am hoping that the conversation can also lean into a third point in running that race. You, as that young man, run that race. And in running that race, that is where we also need the persons who have already established themselves, or you're on your way to establishing yourself, to create that mentoring relationship, pour into someone else, light that candle instead of cursing the darkness, instead of we are plaster when I said, oh, the young man now come out to nothing at all. What can you do it within your own strength and your own space? I'm not saying I can save all, but I'm saying what can you do? I'm not saying to start an entire charity, but adapt one. And once you can make that impact on one, believe in me, that one have an impact on another one. And that is my piece in my opening aspect, and I'm hoping that the conversation, there's so many dimensions to this. One forum cannot discuss it all. It is something that has to be continually discussed. Again, big up to all of the men them. Women, we take nothing at all from you. We can't do it without you, nothing at all. So thank you again for bringing us here, for all the women on the forum. And we're looking for a very rich and fruitful discussion as the time progresses, as much as we can possibly can. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Sir Gordon, for that. Really appreciate that presentation. And again, we're looking forward to a discussion in a few minutes' time. We're going to hear from our third and final speaker with his presentation, Mr. Ado Charrington. He's a member of the Leo Club of Kingston, Mona in Jamaica. He has been a Leo since April of 2007. Ado is an operations supervisor at a large business process outsourcing firm. He finds comfort in knowing that his leadership qualities, which are demonstrated at work, were learned and shaped through Leoism. Ado has served as president for the Leo Clubs of Jamaica and the Cayman Islands. His personal philosophy he takes from Mahatma Gandhi: in a gentle way, you can shape the world. Well, he's going to be shaping the discussion right now as he makes his presentation, Mr. Ado Charrington.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Oliver. Good afternoon, fellow panelists, Mr. Rattray and Mr. Gordon. And to the youths and the man them out there on the live stream, both on YouTube and here on Zoom and any other platform, there is Happy International Men's Day. When I listen to my fellow panelists, the first two speakers, Mr. Rattray took it from an angle of talking about community and the impact that education itself has on developing youths and creating that positive kind of well-being. And then Mr. Gordon spoke on it from the angle of how important that other aspect of community, being those around you, and he made reference to the presenter in terms of having people speak down to you and stuff like that. I want to take it from an angle of volunteerism and surrounding yourself with a community, or rather creating a community for yourself. I also want to look at it by making reference to 2 points: understanding your purpose. Because at the end of the day, we are all exposed to different situations. No single individual has the same exposure. So whereas one of us might be in a situation where we are abused verbally or physically, somebody else might be in a situation where they are abused, from a different angle, from a psychological perspective, and we all don't understand how to deal with it. So I want to talk about how to help men to understand their purpose. Building your own community. What exactly are you talking about? It is important to have a support system, people who you trust. And it is important to understand that within that circle of trust, it is not everyone that you believe is there for you, should be there for you. I want to talk about the importance of family, and that not every single family member is there to support you, and that not every single family member should share in your success. Not every single family member should share or know about your failures, because at the end of the day, they are not all having your best interests at heart. And I make reference to a conversation I was having at work earlier this week. A fellow colleague of mine made reference to when she was younger, and how much there were family members who, basically tear her down. Another colleague joined in the conversations and spoke to the fact that while she was growing up, it was almost like a family culture to stay in the situation that they were in. So you'll have, when it's time for, as an adult, you want to move out and go on your own, there will be family members who are discouraging you and saying, no man, don't do it, it rough out there and all kind of stuff. But how else are you going to understand if it is that you do not take that risk, if it is that you do not shape your own experience from your own exposure? Not to say that other persons' exposures and experiences will not help to shape how you handle the situation, but it is important to have your own exposure and experience. Understanding that not every single friend or every single colleague, whether it be work or any form of other association that you're a part of, must be a part of your success or should be a part of your success. It is important to understand that the purpose that you serve is sometimes not easily understood by even your own self. But in shaping that, you must also learn to evaluating the risk, understanding that risk is necessary and that you should avoid risk where you can, understanding that you should evaluate when you get to a stage where you believe that your goals are not being accomplished. Reassess, reinvent yourself. As some people would say, make a 360-degree turn and look at what you did not accomplish. And there's a specific word that I wrote down and then I put in quotation: acknowledge and learn from diversions, right? Because, and I put in quotation, failures. I don't want to use the word failure because you need to acknowledge that there are diversion on the path that you set out to reach to that final destination of whatever your goal is, whether it is an academic goal, whether it is a goal for family, whether it is a goal for financial well-being, whatever it is, you need to acknowledge that there are going to be diversions. And as long as you can acknowledge that those diversions will come along and you figure out a way how to maneuver and go through them, then you'll pretty much get to where you want to be. And in closing, I just want to say, you need to live, do the things you enjoy, be around people you enjoy, be around the things that you enjoy the most, and just smile, because at the end of the day, like my philosophy said, you can shake the world in a gentle way. And I'm looking forward to the rest of this panel discussion. Thanks again for having me, guys, and bless up.
Ado, thank you very much. Really appreciate that. Just want to encourage you to, all those on the Zoom call, you can drop in your points as well as questions, of course, in the chat, and we'll acknowledge it. For those of you watching on YouTube as well, you can make a comment and we'll acknowledge those as well. And of course, if you have any questions, you can post it there. Sarochi posted in our Zoom chat, males should also be encouraged to speak out when they are victims of domestic violence. Many are dying in silence because of what the society might say of them if they speak up. I want to go to Chad because I may be wrong, but he may be the youngest of all of us here. He's obviously just coming out of the high school system, and I'm always fascinated to know, especially in the all boys setup, how he was able to gain the respect to rise to the position of head boy in that group, and if it was a difficult process. Because what I really want to get to is the psyche of young men these days, because of course Chad would have seen all sorts. So just to bring into focus that for me, Chad, what was it like for you to be an example, even if it was an unwilling example, growing up at Kingston College?
It was certainly it was a challenge. I won't hide the truth. It was a challenge because all boys school, let me tell you, all boys schools are very difficult for you to survive in. And I say that with no hesitation. So many different personalities, so many, yeah, I think I have a lot of different personalities. But there's a certain perception of what masculinity should be that is usually evident in these all-male institutions. And there are usually persons who people follow. So you have the people that will, follow this boy, or they follow their examples based on what's the in thing, and everybody focuses on that. I was never that type of person. I stood up for what was right. I stood up, and that's the thing. I wasn't always liked. You're never going to be liked once you have principles, once you have moral, and you stand up for what you believe in. And you ask a question, how I reach it, boy. I ask myself at the same time because, I'm thinking about it when you said it and what I had to go through and what, I was really there just wondering, how did I do it? And I managed for 7 years. And well, the thing was is that I had served as student council president before, and that position allowed me to interact and to socialize with the student population. So that's what my job was. It was there to represent the young men of Kingston College. And I even served as the national treasurer of the National Secondary Student Council. So I was representing young people across Jamaica from a very early age. And one of the biggest problems was that I was confronted with was that a lot of the boys are coming from certain communities. Yes, because remember, KC, everything has to come into context, my fellow panelists. If you think about it, Kingston College is downtown. And let's get it straight, is that KC and some other all-male schools were built specifically for boys, young, poor Black boys. Yes, and that's what our mantra was founded upon. So I had to be dealing with, again, several different social issues that were not necessarily because nobody's born as a bad person or born as somebody who is not good. It's all because of your environment. So if they're coming from a particular environment, I can't expect to change them in one day. But guess what? It did work over time. I implemented the Young Men Empowerment Program. Yep. You get it? Yep. But yeah. And what I did was to bring some of the young people, some of the young men to Parliament. We had a Parliament visit. Then I had some conferences, put them in a conference setting. And they knew how they learned etiquette and they learned so many different things, how to conduct themselves in meetings and how to do speeches. I train persons on public speaking and so on. So that is what we need more of in our schools. And it's not just all male schools, it's about we need deliberate programs that are addressed to our men. And I'm going to be very frank and very straight about it, is that I am happy. I'm happy that we have female empowerment. I'm happy for that. But when you look on the amount of programs that are aimed at male empowerment in comparison to female empowerment, not that I'm drawing comparison, that's not the aim that I want persons to take from it. What I want to take from it is that there's a deficiency in the amount of men that are going into communities, men that are going into schools and starting initiatives to get our boys and our young men to where we need them to be. So it was a difficult process, but we got through it.
Chad, you make a very good point, and I want to go to that point with Mr. Gordon for just a little bit, but just to acknowledge McCoy Morrison, who said a lot of males don't know what success means to them, and this causes a loss of development within our society. Jelani Roper says, in Jamaican society, as men, we are not allowed to have feelings. Then these men turn to violence to display this tough masculine identity that may attract some women, and because we do a lot of stuff for women, and may look good to some friends. It's all about pleasing society, not themselves. Chad made an important point just now, and I think as a nation, we are not specific enough to deal with our unique circumstances. And even with the environment argument the other day, where a lot of persons are even asking, why are we mining? The concept of mining on an island just doesn't sit well with me, because it's more finite than most other areas on the planet. But that's a different discussion. The point that I'm making, though, is usually when we look at social interventions, we take our cue from the United States. And Apo, I want you to join in, because I know that you are on the ground a lot. Why is it that men in Jamaica, and that's the point I'm making, have been ostracized, and our young boys in particular have been ostracized because not a lot of focus in terms of social intervention has been placed on our young men. And even when I was attending university, mind you, I was in the art, so it could be obviously more lopsided to more girls being a part of the arts. But I think generally speaking, there are more women going to our universities as opposed to men. And for me, that just means that nobody really business about the men and them achieving higher education, which is just a synopsis of the bigger picture, I feel. Mr. Gordon, what are your thoughts on this?
I really welcome that question. I really do. And it ties into something that someone put in the chat about men not being able to share. And that is so real. But to tie it all together, you made mention that there's not much social interventions. I'm a big advocate for social intervention. The reality is this now. It should reach a case where there's a social intervention. Yes, there's always going to be intervention and everything because there's no perfect situation, no perfect system, no perfect process. Everything, you build as you go along. But the reality is that no, we don't, society is not built on a foundation that allow me or any man to speak freely, man to man. And if I could talk man to man freely, what would I talk about if the men were to be very honest? I would have speak freely about my thoughts, my desires, my feelings, my emotions, my mind, my marriage, my weaknesses, my strength, my fear, my doubts, my struggle, my journey, my life journey, my insecurity, my hurt, my pain, my defeats, my loneliness, my imperfections, my vulnerabilities, my failures, my shortcomings, my finances. Society is not built on a foundation for a man to express these things. We grow up here say, yeah man, tapping nice, we are balfa. You understand me? And that is the way how we are grown. That is how society train us. And then now when we get older, it is expected of us. The ladies expect us to be very gentle, very soft, be very emotional, be sensitive to their emotional needs. But we were never taught that. We were never taught that. We were taught to boy tapping eyes. We are ball for. But if it was the same your daughter, it would be a case of hush, brush it off for you, and then all of that. So it reached a case now where the social interventions what we have for men is prison when things get bad. And that's just a sad reality. It's a sad reality. And that is why I made mention that it should reach a stage now where many persons who learn the hard way, even for myself, because even though I had a father and God bless his soul, he did the best as how he think he could have done, but he never grew up with a father to show him that particular way how so he just give what he thought. No, I am a father and I have my son. What I have to do is look at my son and see myself, right? And instead of waiting until a social intervention until he get older, what is important to me, I impart into him from now. So we need to reach a stage where many of us who are unaware are already there. We start to have that conversation again where positive masculinity. It is okay to share certain things because if we are able to share certain things, a lot of actions, we wouldn't have certain actions. Would have known. I always say this to persons. If men were able to look at life like a domino, you ever see some man that sit down and play domino yet? And we say that these are men who can't read, but when them sit down and them read the I'm not a good domino player. And when I look at these man, they read the domino game and know what move to make next. It's almost like chess. Not everybody good at chess. I'm just learning. But domino, you know what card, what bones to play next. If we could translate that to reality, man, believe in me, the level of crime that we would have, it wouldn't even be there because we reach a stage where we can reason out certain things. We can look past certain things. But because we are brought up in such a way that we have to be rough and tough, and we have to react and not we don't learn how to respond, right? So it's a matter of we just grow up, and then we get all end up throwing in one situation, and it's like a cat in one bath. You try figure it out. As a man, you're trying to figure out you're trying to figure out your own self while meeting your own expectations, while trying to meet the female expectation, while trying to meet somebody else's expectation, and you can't even meet your own expectation. All of that becomes turmoil. So many of us, because we don't have that positive role model because of what society is selling us. Society sell you that, guess what, you need to have enough quote unquote girl in a bungle, you need to have the whole heap of money and the flashy things. But how society teachers say they want the $1 million by a morning. So that is what the mindset is. And then no, because I want the $1 million morning, there's no process there, there's no thought process there to say, guess what? I have to put some things in place in order for move from that quick, fast cash thing. So that is where we need to go into, and it starts with just us. It starts with us. It starts with us. I would say it's very sad. It's very sad that the social interventions we have is prison, and it should be a case where, just as though we have this platform speaking, I'm lending this to even the persons. Don't wait until it's a men day to have that discussion. It's something that's supposed to be ongoing. It's like you don't plant a seed in one garden and just leave it there. You have to go out there and plow it up and dig it up and water it a little bit. You understand me? That is what you have to do. So many of us and many persons, the seed is already planted, but there's nothing there to nurture that seed. And men, I say this without apology, and anyone can challenge me on this. Men really need role models. They may not outrightly say it, but what they do, they observe certain things, and they see the corner, the corner full of tattoo, the corner full of lot of things that go on the corner. So they gravitate to that more. There's not a lot of fathers on the inside, and even fathers at home, the fathers are silent.
Yep. Another
They're
comment just came in from Sorochi. The reality is that most males see education as a slow path to be financially free. Males tend to leave the house early in order to make money, and along the line, forget education on YouTube. The Yui Mona first year experience. That's a buddy, isn't it? But I'm sure it's just one person who commented. I don't think this comment is on behalf of the group, but alas, we must support development of both genders. I agree with that. Female empowerment was necessary as males had the privilege. I agree with that. The balance shifted, and it's now a balance where both are equally nurtured. I actually disagree with that. I don't think it's level at the moment. As I made an example before, that we can see it in our schools and how it's set up at the tertiary level. So Shana McFarlane says, I really like this conversation, guys. Yeah, thank you, Sashana, for that comment. Back to McCoy Morrison. But what happens when you get the money? They waste it because we lack self-vision beyond what society shows, even if you lose yourself in the process. There's a phrase that says the devil finds work for idle hands. And Ado, you can jump in here in terms of how do we move on as a society when the hands of young men are idle? How do we change that? How do we engage their minds? Is it just saying, them just need to get a work and the government just need to just give a work, and is that the solution?
Well, it's not the long-term solution. It is in fact something that can be seen as short-term, and I can speak from this from both angles of being a part of a voluntary organization, and even in my workspace. I work in the BPO industry, one of the fastest growing industry in Jamaica. But when you look at the ratio of male to female, it is still predominantly female. When you look at voluntary organizations such as mine, there is a heavier ratio of female in comparison to male. So it's going to take a whole cultural change and a reformation of culture, because a lot of the discussion surrounding this conversation of how do we get our males to get to that stage where they understand that it's not just about the now, but longevity in terms of financial well-being. And you talk about, somebody mentioned the point about forgetting education and thinking about what the money. No, and you, Mr. Oliver, spoke about government should provide a work. No, we see it on the television when them say the youth them have no work, the ghetto youth them have nothing to do. I wouldn't want to call myself a product of the ghetto, but I grew up in what is considered a ghetto community. I grew up in what was violence was almost the norm to you going to school and you hear the gunshot ringing out or in the night and stuff like that. And it took a community in a sense for me to get out of that mental space first and foremost before I could actually no longer see myself as a quote unquote product of the ghetto or the garrison, because persons can still live there and be successful, but you have to mentally get out of that place first and foremost, understanding that it's not just about what you see now. You see your fellow young men sitting on the corner and they must say them have no work and education. What I realized that they term it a lot is that the Babylon system never create for certain kind of people. But in fact, if it is that the system was never created for you, who is going to change it? It takes us. It takes an involvement of young people, not just to be a part of the civic process. We talk about the importance of elections and the importance of politics. Some people may shy away from the conversation, but the reality is, if it is that us as young men don't take that initiative to understand that we play a role, and it goes back to the point that I made in my introduction in terms of understanding your purpose. So if it is that we don't get to that stage where we culture in the mind of young men that it is important to understand their purpose, what is their role, what are their duties, starting from as early as the primary level. Because whether we want to believe it or not, a lot of it, as I said before, is tied to culture. And unless we can change that culture in terms of thinking, in terms of how we do things, in terms of what we do to empower our men, then we'll come back to this conversation year in, year out. 10 years from now, we'll probably still be having the conversation. The reality is where we were 10 years ago, we are not there now, but we still have a very far way to go. Investing in social programs, they are not the solutions overall, but they are part of the solution. And it has to be a holistic approach. And unless we can take that holistic approach, then it's unfortunate that we will still be at this stage having this conversation almost like a revolving conversation with no real tangible solution, just more mouth talk and going around and around. So we have to invest in those things.
Well, let's take a look at tangible solutions. And I tell you what, I mean, we're going to get real tangible here based on this comment from Sorochi. What happens when they make the money is that they spend it on females. In as much as what we have is a patriarchal society, the females rule it because most of the suffering of men is for the betterment of the females. Who wants to get in trouble first? Because he touched on a point of influence, in that a lot of us do things because women tell us to do. Do you think one, that's true? And if that's the case, women, and I think they know this, are really powerful because they can change the dynamic, right?
And you're right. And it goes back to belief and culture as well. Because if you want to talk about from a religious perspective, the men are seen as the breadwinner. They're seen as those who are supposed to go out there and fend for the family and come in with the bread and ensure that everything is, taken care of at home, in the sense that they provide and they give it to the female. So we're not so much concerned about how the spending go. I have a couple of my brethren who will tell me that, hey, me not go supermarket, me not go market, me just give the money and I'll drive the girlfriend, the wife, or whoever it is to the supermarket, but I'm not going in there to pick up anything because I don't have a clue as to what happened. Talking about growing up as a child and ensuring that you empower your children with positive affirmation and stuff like that. That's the mother job, man. I have a brethren the other day, he said to me, say, I'll tell you something. When I'm having a conversation with my son, I said to my son, yeah, boy, you're good, you think you're girls, man, everybody want you. Him say, no, daddy, cause whatever. I'm saying, no, man. Let me tell you something. You're the hottest boy around here. Every girl I go want you. You're the top of top. And that's what we're talking about in terms of empowering. But the comment earlier is somewhat right because men, because of culture, we don't have that kind of conversation. We don't get ourselves involved with certain aspect of development, the emotional side, the more softer things. We are more cultured to take on the rugged kind of stuff. And as a result, the females dominate in that aspect. Not to say that it's not important, but it's high time that we get to understand that men also need to play a role in that aspect. And it goes back to finding the balance. And whether or not some people argue and have that conversation, is balance really needed? Because there are certain things that some people will say that it's a man's duty, or it's a man's world in that aspect, and therefore it should stay to that side. The balance should not shift, but it's going to take a more holistic conversation.
Apo, if a girl who you love tells you to be better, how does or how would that affect you? And in your experience in speaking to a number of young men, how would that situation affect them in terms of their response? Do they aim to become better? Do they question how they become better? Or are they left frustrated by saying, you know what, nothing can happen? That's it.
The first time a lady tell me that we need to be better, I think it was a high school, grade 7, and that crushed me. That crushed me. Um, Translate to umpteen decades after now. I am a married person for one, so striving to be better is something that I look for each time. I'm not sure if my wife is on this platform, but she can attest. It is conversations that we have. How can I be better? You understand me? But it all depends on the mindset, how it is said, and what is being said, and what it is being alluded to. Because saying be better have so many connotations to that. You understand me? And if you have a very, I'm not even gonna say a fragile ego, because we have emotions. So someone can say, yeah, you need to be better, and it may lead to the wrong thing. And that in itself may kill whatever conflict, whatever little confidence they did have to begin with, right? To say to be better. But in terms of being a better person, let us lean towards that way. um, that is something that should always be welcoming. So if someone should say to me, and I'm saying this to the persons on the platform, not being fictitious, I'm being very transparent. If I'm in a relationship, let's say my wife, or let us say if I was not married, and the person asks me, or the person to me say, you need to be better. I'm going to say, what is the challenge you're currently having now? Because in order for me to be better, we have to identify what is the challenge, and then look at the gap. Where do you want me to? Where do you want me to be? And then look how we can plug the gap. And if it's a case where you want me to be better, how can you help me to be better? What is your role in the? What is your role? What is your role in making me better? Because the fact that you want me to be better is must be some form of satisfaction to you, mentally, physically, spiritually, or emotionally. You understand me? So you want me to be better? Okay, let us go on this journey together then. Instead of you just say, let me be better, and I'm trying to find my way out and tripping over things, falling over. If you want me to be better, let us do this. What do you want me to do? How are you going to assist me in plugging those gaps in order to be better?
Shea Music says good
I,
conversations
I can
and
somewhat
reasoning.
relate to that.
Hold on, just coming to you quickly. Um, uh, Christina Campbell says it all comes down to gender expectation or norm. She also says we think that men should provide and women should be caretakers. So then, as Ado said, we, men and women, need to reevaluate these ideas and shift this culture. Yes, Ado.
No, I was just basically, reaffirming what Apollonian said in that last point in terms of if a female comes to you. And I myself had a very personal experience with that very same scenario where a young lady said to me, "Why, it's difficult to deal with you." And I said, "About how? What exactly do you mean by it's difficult to deal with me? What do I need to do to change that perception that you have of me?" I know it was kind of a standoff conversation, but unless the female willing to say, this is X and this is the issue that I have, if you're not willing to say to me, "Boy, Ado, and I like that you do this, I like that you do that. And this is how I can assist in that change." But if it is that you're just going to come to the fore and say, do better, what exactly is doing better? Because that might just be my perception of what is better. This is how I was cultured in terms of what is better. So, it has to be involvement of everyone. When a female say to you, "Do better," what exactly is doing better in your view and my view, and finding that middle ground or that consensus where all of us can agree on.
Chad, how is this relatable to you? Because, well, I don't think well, you can tell the story yourself. If you had a girlfriend pushing you through from first form through the fifth form, or was it your parents? What pushed you? And in your experience, how was it relatable to other young men who would have probably had similar experiences or no?
Well, for me, I don't know. I've never gotten from. I can't recall ever being told from a girl I should be better. I mean, because I usually they don't want to go for me. I mean, a bit. I think so, but I have certainly listened to my brothers. I've listened to those who are around me, so I can definitely attest to that. Can I tell you that men are very sensitive? Can I tell? I don't think people understand this enough. Men are very sensitive. So don't make the hard shell outside fool you. Let me tell you. You see, when especially at high school level or even university, you see when a guy really want a girl and the girl reject him, let me tell you, it's one of the worst feelings. But I'm happy to have not gone through that experience. And yeah, but men are sensitive. And I want to just take the conversation back to where I heard it was going there. And I heard this type of, well, based on the chat, I'm seeing persons, I see some feminist views coming out of the chat at times. I just want to remind people, based on the conversation, just to protect my fellow panelists, that we're not here to say that men should rule society. That's not what we're here to say. What we're here to say is to say that we see where there are deficiencies, we see where we're not going in the right direction for some of our men in society. And what we want, what I aspire for, is for us to reach a particular place in society where there's balance, and balance of rules. Because sometimes I was listening to a lecture once, and he was saying that recently, actually this week, he was saying that he went to the gym, and there was this man that was training at the gym as well, and him just beat up him woman. Just don't beat up him woman. Yeah. And he was saying that he was spitting out some facts that naturally men are stronger. Yes, men are strong, and when it comes to domestic violence, so you see, when we have this tag on war and this rope, everybody at the end of each of the rope pulling, this side saying men, this side saying women. At the end of the day, we have to recognize and come to a consensus that there are certain things that men are probably better at, and certain things that women are better at. But how we find that balance is by sharing whatever we are good at and coming together and making life work. That's how it works for me. I mean, the girl that I'm currently seeing, as I would put it, I won't say I'm in a relationship, but the girl that I'm currently seeing, I mean, she brings, she's smart, she is affectionate, she is emotional, and everything is good, and everything balance out between us, between as it relates to our personalities and so on. So the argument that there has to be some hierarchy, some either patriarchy or matriarchy, I completely rebut that. And but back to Mr. Oliver's point, that yes, I have been in situations where my fellow brothers have been rejected, even at KC. But also another issue I want to talk about is that what I saw when I was at Casey's was that there were persons who were my age or younger having children. So meaning when I was 19 or 8, I was 18, and there were young men in my same grade who had them youth, as them put it. The more they say, them have this. If you ever have a conversation with any of your brethren, you must have heard it before when they say, everybody want them youth or they want. So I've been in that situation. And people even at the CXC, meaning that them in a fifth form, have them youth already. And so the conversation has to be as well, how do we train our men to recognize that they have to build themselves before they can go on to build anybody else? Because, Oliver, you referred to it, you were talking about earlier, and I think Ado was talking about it as well, as it relates to women wanting to change men sometimes. Sometimes the real empowerment really comes from us. It has to start from us. Because, if any, if it, if, so it will, if we allow ourselves to be, if we allow ourselves to be controlled because men don't like to be controlled, and that's a fact, or a majority, our empowerment or however we want to go, it has to start from us. And we can't wait until we reach a relationship to find ourselves, because that's very dangerous. You might find somebody who is not you. So you have to find yourself, and that's why I don't rush myself into relationships. I have to find myself, and I have to make sure so my books come first. I mean, no girl can come first. My books come first because my education this is the most important thing, At the end of the day, the brain. And that is what's gonna stay with you right throughout life. You're gonna always change girlfriends, you're gonna always have different women coming in. You must ensure that at the end, whichever one you choose to settle down with at any time, that this is up here, this is mentally empowered, and that you can indeed, of course, contribute to your society. That's just
So
my view.
So Rocha says it's not all about being better or getting an assistance from the other partner. Is he or she better? You can ask for what you don't have, and then what is the yardstick to measure better? On YouTube, S. Christina Campbell says, me looking at a guy telling him to be better means being the best self for you in terms of evaluating where in his life is lacking, and I will help him get there. All right. There was a disturbing video that made its way on social media the other day about a girl being beaten. Um, she was with a group of boys, and then this fight broke out, and then there was just there was just a beating of her. I think it was by one guy in particular, and I mentioned something on
Right here.
Twitter, almost in anger. Because
You're muted, Mr. Oliver.
Oh, I've been talking all this time. Goodness me. All right, let me see if I can go back then. I was making a point about I saw a disturbing video on on social media about a girl being beaten by several men, or boys, I should say, and it really was disturbing. And in anger, I put on Twitter that I think all young men who are idle and really have nothing to do should be in the army system, not necessarily to become soldiers, because that in and of itself is a responsibility, but just to be in a system that instills discipline. Um, and of course, there are many things that can happen in terms of community policing, as well as police youth clubs becoming active in communities as well. Anything to keep our young men active and to instill a level of discipline. I just want to know where you guys are at in terms of that approach, and should do you agree with the idea of all young men to be enlisted in the army for at least a couple of years just to go through that process?
All right, I think I'll go first.
Let
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't, or Mr. Gordon can go first.
It's okay, Chad. You can go ahead.
Okay. So that's it, Oliver. That's where we're all, I guess, kind of sometimes we are
I can
so
look
we're
at it.
oh, anybody can somebody else
It's
was talking
something
about?
that it's
Okay, Chad,
Yeah, I can
go
go ahead.
ahead.
Or I
Go
don't.
ahead.
Okay, okay, okay. So I was saying that that's the biggest question now. What's the solution going forward? How do we hurt a nation of males? And I heard from an economic standpoint, somebody said jobs. That's what I heard earlier in the discussion. And the fact of the reality, is that last year there was what? It was recorded 500,000 people living in poverty in Jamaica. At least that's the statistics that I got. And if let's say if we're looking at crime, for example, one social ill crime, if we have a murder rate of, let's say, almost 2,000 murders, yes. If we're supposed to put one murder to one murderer, we can put it at 2,000 murders. So can we always go back and say that everything is linked economically? Because yes, I don't refer to it. BPO sector, we have had the most jobs created over the past 4 years. But does that necessarily have we seen a big shift, a fundamental shift to say that okay, more men are getting jobs, more men coming off the streets, you're seeing less men on the streets, less men idle? No, you're still seeing the fundamental problem. So it is, for me, my point of view has always been that it takes social policies, it takes cultural and social change if you want to necessarily change whatever socio-economic issues that we have or we're confronted with. Now, I like the idea, Oliver, to be honest with you, about the army, because the army teaches you certain skills, and I believe that it's one of those institutions that could really change young men and to really teach them, because that's what America does. America has a type of boot camp system where parents send the boys and they get straightened out and they come back and they're good to go. It's not necessarily that simple, but we have to start looking on solutions. One, I would say, certainly we need to probably enroll persons in the army, but before that, we have to start at our education system, because there is obviously something wrong. And sometimes, when we're looking at solutions, we jump far ahead to jobs, but we don't look on the systems or the levels before that. And we have to attach it from the infant level, because that the first 1,000 days of a newborn life is the most important. That's where you the environment that you grew up in, that's what's going to basically teach you some values. So we have to start from the family unit. We have to look on education. How are we schooling our boys? How are we teaching our boys? Because we have this type of education system where it teaches everybody one set way and thinks that everybody should come out the same way. And that's not how it works. Everybody have unique abilities, unique gifts. And whether it be dancing, cultural arts, cultural art forms. There are so many different ways we can empower men. And I remember watching I was watching a news story on it. There was some school and a principal. He decided to put in a cultural program, having students express themselves, having them dance and whatever. And he recognized that there was an improvement in their academic performance. So we have the same systems, we keep using them. We don't see the result. I mean, you have 163 high schools, and half of them of which are not functioning. These are fundamental issues, and we need to have a whole different system because Mr. Oliver, you alluded to it. We have taken systems from world countries, first world countries, and we expect them to work in our local realities. And that doesn't work because we have to have programs and institutions that are tailored to our local realities and our local issues.
In continuing on that point, and to be very very brief, Oliver,
And
you
I want
asked
to,
earlier.
I can agree with the point about getting.
Continue, Apple. I think the person speaking, I'm trying to identify the person. There may be a bit of a lag, so if you can just log out and come back inside, it's fine. But Ado, are you back with us now? Can you go ahead?
Yes, I am here. All right. So I was saying to the question you had asked earlier is a question of social intervention. Do we think we should go the route of getting our boys into the army? We see where that worked for a lot of other countries such as Turkey. I was in the States at one point in time, and I some of my friends are from Turkey. They made mention that you have all men, all male over there, you automatically go into the army, and by the age 19, you decide if you want to stay in the army or you go look work. You understand me? Now, sounds and looks very good for that culture, but given the climate and the society that we are having out here in Jamaica is one that, for me personally, I don't think will work on many other fronts. And I will touch on what I see, what is really happening right now. I remember in high school, I was a cadet in high school, and for me, I left the cadet because for me, I wanted my own way. I felt very restricted, and realized that even with boys, young youth, adolescent, not just boys, teenager on a whole, when you give persons rules and confining rules, the human nature wanted us to break that rule. They said to wear brown socks, they're going to wear white. You said to put a shirt in your pants, and guess what? They feel like the shirt wear outside of them pants, so them take it out. Okay, so all right, so me give a bush jacket to you must wear, bush jacket wearing outside. No, I'm seeing where boys tucking in the bush jacket into the pants because person just want to be unruly. Why? Because you say I'm supposed to do this, they just want to do something else, right? I must applaud the government and the hard trust to what I'm seeing right now, where just we would call them ghetto youth, but we call them unattached youths, right? So those are the youth that are out there. They're not in any formal system. I would say where persons through the councillors and the member of parliaments where they get those youths and get them into a training program, right, where the government actually pays for this program. We have seen where persons argue that it is not sustainable for the vocational training centers to keep these youth. So we see now where they're at the upper camp, right? So currently at upper camp, you have many unattached youths up there doing, I'm a part of that program too, that program where they call it the LEGS program, Learn, Earn, Give, and Save program. Or them call it the NEM, the National Youth, they call it National Youth Engagement Program, the NEM program. So we see where the government is doing a form of social intervention. Now, even though that is good, and I'm a part of that, I'm an assessor on that, I'm a mentor on that, it leads into the question is that, is this a band-aid? Because the sustainability of it, is it that we're going to just look on all the youths now that are currently unattached and get them there? What about the persons who are coming up? I believe that we should grab them from there and then from the basic school, and don't wait until it reach to a state, till it reach a so-called situation where we're trying to put in something remedial. Just as though we have that now, it should be a case where, okay, just as like you have a project, we have a start of an end. How long is this? Is this going to be a 5-year, a 6-year, or 8-year, or 10-year plan? All of those youth on the street, all of those persons who are unattached, you get them. And the next part of that now, even though yes, we have these persons, we're upskilling them in electrical, all different type of skill, we have to find the jobs. That is the next thing. So yes, we find that social intervention where they're up by up for camp and they're there, they're learning discipline. Many believe him is hard. Some of them you see me have on a necktie, they say they will never wear a tie because only so-called certain man wear tie. And we still see the level of indiscipline, right? But just as so you can teach person knowledge, skills, but you can't teach a person attitude. You can demonstrate it and hope that a person um may see it and emulate it. And that is where it has to start. It has to start from they are young. So yes, we have the social intervention now, but the only thing that we need to find out now, guess what? Is it a case where it's the 5-year plan, a 10-year plan? And then now when we find that, when we have that social intervention, what about the younger generation that is coming up that is under 10? We need to hold on to those youths, boys and girls, and to, prune them. I mean, if I should use the Bible, which is the foundation of everything that I do, the word of God said, um, train up a child in the way he ought to grow, but that when he grow up, he shall never depart from it. Plant that seed from early so that even when, life may come and you may stray a little bit, that foundation is planted from there and then to say that, guess what? I'm not really free in doing all these maladaptive things and malicious and things that I'm doing. But yes, we have the social intervention that is going on now. What is the timeline? Let us reach a stage now where from the primary school, from the prep school, from the home, right? And yes, that is a challenge and another conversation because a lot of homes are broken. And we see that is displaying or no. How we see that displaying more also because we see where we have shift from going to physical class to online space. And we see a lot of person on the online space making disparaging remarks, some of it out of frustration, and it shows that the home is broken. The parents themselves don't even know how to spell the child name. I'm privileged to be at a doctor once, and the doctor asked the father, what is the child name? And the father said, him name explains it, and the child said, and that's some name spell, and he said, tapping eyes. You understand me? The child is telling the father that daddy and some name spell, and him tell us tapping eyes. It shows that that home itself is broken. We reach a stage where yes, we have the social intervention, but we need to heal the family before we can go to healing the nation. That's where we need to start.
Ado, you chipping in?
Yeah, it's important that we again I go back to the point of saying that we need to look at it from a holistic perspective. The army is a good place for discipline, but is the army suited or fit for every single young man? And a part of the reason why I say that it's because culture, and Apollina mentioned that is it something that our cultural norms allow for to be suited. There are so many aspects of providing solution to this. The army, one of them, I very much agree with you, Ms. Oliver, on that one. But then there are so many others. You talk about social intervention programs, you talk about social organization, which help to deal with networking and discipline itself. My very own organization that I'm a part of, the Leo Club, and there are so many other volunteer organizations out there because when we get to that stage where we can help young men
All right, I think Ado just left us. I think he's having a little bit of problem with his internet, so I hope he can rejoin us as quickly as possible. But I just want to open the floor for all those on the Zoom call. If anyone has any question right now, you can just jump in. In the meantime, McCoy says, what about the understanding of life and why education is needed? I have seen my person fail school and can't return, then move toward unproductive state. But will a job really solve the problem? Um, I guess I can ask that to Apple, his thoughts on if a job really can solve that one.
The first, can I hear about the first part before I talk about solving? That's the first part.
What about the understanding of life and why education is needed? I have seen my person fail school and can't return, then they move toward an unproductive state. But will a job really solve the problem?
Um, well, if a job would really solve the problem is one that it is a band-aid. It is a band-aid. Why do I say it's a band-aid? Because having a job can be very good and can be very bad. Believe in me. And I will only talk about the bad part of it only if you do ask me. But it turns to a state. One of my colleagues made mention of it earlier. You have to learn to understand self, because yes, you may have the job, and the job is maybe fulfilling certain need, but yet still, how many times we have read the news and we hear say a criminal act has been done, but yet still when a criminal act is being done and the person who them say do the act is a person that have a title to their name, such as maybe a mason or a laborer, or it shows that this person is doing something productive. It's not all the time the news reports say um, an unemployed X, Y, and Z is unemployed. So having a job, quote unquote, don't really fix the situation. We work first and foremost. We have to understand self. That is where you have to do. How do you see yourself? Yourself before you can translate that within a job. Because even though you have that job and the job is meeting certain need, but yet still you within yourself, you may not be satisfied and it may force you to go out of your way because of societal pressures. The societal pressure in itself come from your peers, your immediate environment. So all in all, the job in itself don't always fix the problem. The problem is basically within us. How is that we think? How is that we see ourselves? That is where we have to start.
You in Mona first year experience FYE, uh, the educational system is not diverse enough. We need to tailor to our realities, purpose, training, discipline, courage. It could or could not be the army, but some fellowship kind of thing. Ado is back with us. Just want you to continue the point you were making before you got cut off.
Right. Thanks very much. I don't know, internet issues here. But that last comment you made touched on the point that I was making when I spoke of the fact that our educational system is not diverse enough. Or young men or young women who want to be artistic, who want to be actors and actresses, who want to go into the performing arts, who want to just be a sports person, but taking them not just to exploit the talent and have them nurture it and so, but also to understand that there's a business aspect to it. But what our educational system is set up in a way now, to you go to school, you matriculate through primary school or prep school, you go to high school, you do your subjects, you do your CXCs, you go into college. There's no real kind of framework or plan, at least in my view, to become adaptive to the diverse need that is there. The person made the comment, talk about, exploring different aspect of development, and that is where various organizations like mine come into play, where you create that atmosphere for networking, you create that atmosphere for looking into different aspects. So somebody studying in the field of medicine, being a part of another organization, will help to tap into that project management aspect of their capabilities, or just tapping into that side of giving back even in the smallest way that you can. But like I said, I'm of the view that the army helps in some way, but I wouldn't say it is the total and overall solution, and neither is the job or getting a job, to that last point that you made, the total and overall solution. Because I can tell you, even interacting with colleagues at work, you'll have some young men who are employed there, and they'll tell you, oh, yeah, me have a job, but me not feel me get the kind of respect when me need, me not feel me get the kind of empowerment we need. And I'll go back to a point where I hear a lot these days about millennials and how entitled they feel, and how much they believe that everything, should be dished out to them on a plate, or on a platter with silver and gold, and it's all about them. So how do we then bring back the conversation to letting them understand that, hey, you are not in it alone, and neither are you expected to do it alone, but there are organizations, there are groups, there are forums and platforms out there to help you and guide you along the way. And I go back to, I also agree with what Mr. Apollon said. It also has to start in the home. But how do you fix a broken home when really and truly, probably that is what the culture they're used to. So again, it has to be from a holistic approach, where also we involve in a part of the development. Parental classes, it may be simple. Not every parent can learn from book or structured methods, but it can play a role and it can play a part.
We're going to wrap up soon, but I tell you what, I guess we have to really try and develop systems, right? And that's the key, to try and
Exactly.
help with this particular situation of influencing our young men to do better. And as I speak of systems, one of the first thing that comes to my mind is policing, and what can be done through policing that we don't normally see or we haven't seen in a while. Because I don't know how many police youth clubs are active now, obviously with COVID, but I'm talking about recently, even before COVID. What was the plan, or what has been the plan with our police youth clubs, and the impact of a community policing initiative? How do we engage them to interact with the community, and in particular, of course, our young men, most of whom, or some of whom, are idle on the streets with nothing or little to do?
I've seen about 2 years ago, in Denham, I think it's Denham Town, there was um in Denham Town there was a policeman, I think it was an inspector superintendent by the name of McGregor, and he left and they sent him to the country, and a place of Denham Town that person is considered to be very volatile, and that area. And we saw where persons were protesting when he was leaving. And McGregor is a very tough policeman. Him come from the 90s, the 80s. What were they protesting about? They were making mention that they saw him introduce a kind of policing that they are not used to, which is what we call community police. where he interact with the persons, and that is where we need to go back to. It is sad to say, and it's a harsh reality, the respect that the police so deserve is no longer there. And it is not my words, but it is evident in watching the news. We have seen policemen that died for the past year. And also we have seen where in recent time where a police went to make an arrest and the same citizens that he went to, the same citizens that he's serving and protecting, they attacked him. And I don't really want to go into that conversation too much because there's so many dimensions to that. But I'm saying that to say that the respect factor is gone. And because the respect factor is gone, I have a lot of um, police friends and my colleagues. It reached a case now where they would just drop their hands and say, "Boy, right now, anything is anything right now." So here it is one, we have one set that is demotivated and demoralized based on what is happening, and the other set is saying that they can't. There's no trust. It's not gonna happen tomorrow. It has to start by putting down brick by brick, brick by brick. And that is where I don't know which policeman or woman is going to be brave enough to mend back those fences. But currently, within the system itself, there are wounds. There are wounds on the law side, and there are wounds on the side of these persons, the society. And they say that it's time in itself that heal wounds. And that is what we'll have to say. Even if the police come out with a plan now and say, hey, this is what we're going to do, it is not going to be well received until it has been tested and proven and tried. And that is going to take time. And that is something that you and I don't know if we have, but it is something that we have to sit back and look, and we all just have to just play our part, whatever part that is in this entire thing.
I think I don't see Chad. I wonder if he can chime in here, but I think he probably has left us. Ado, as we wrap up this conversation, is there anything missing that we could have touched on in terms of solutions and moving forward? Because again, there were several points in terms of, it, it would help if the family was stable, but how do we do that from the outside looking in? I mean, we you can't force family values, can you? So the go-to solution is making sure that we have a proper system in place just in case the family setup doesn't work. But of course, family is a big thing, and it would help with the process. But what are your final thoughts on the matter, Ado?
Exactly, because you cannot force something, but it's a part of planning. A part of planning is that you have backup systems, or you have something, just in case it doesn't work, just in case the family fails. What do you have as a support system, in a sense? What do you have to back it up? And it's not even a matter of backing it up, or having something, but it's a matter of support, because everything works in tandem. Everything is attached and connected and related. So you talk about the family, you talk about social programs, you talk about dealing with the economic aspect of it, and helping people to understand that everything really ties in. But what I'll say in terms of what else to offer as solution is, looking at our nation and where we want to be as an independent nation, adopting the plans that may work somewhere else in another developing or a third world country and a first world country. Because I find that a challenge, in my opinion, is that we tend to want to adopt a lot of what the first world country is. And we have not gotten to that stage where we are mature enough to handle how a first world country deal with their situation in terms of development of youth, development of the male, development of the child, development of the family. We tend to want to, regurgitate a lot of what we see in first world countries, and we have not yet gotten to that stage of maturity or understanding that how they got to where they are didn't just take word of mouth or didn't just take an overnight practice, but it took a cultural shift, a cultural change, you know, and looking at all of those things, I think, is important. So it will require a holistic involvement of policymakers, both from the legislative aspect of governance, from the judiciary, every aspect that you want to think of, it needs that coming together, and it doesn't just take them alone, but it takes every individual man, woman, boy, and girl within the individual communities, looking at communities from an individual perspective. What are the needs of a Denham Town versus a Cherry Garden? What are the needs of an Arnett Garden versus an August Town? What are the needs of a Papine, where or two universities are major universities are located? What are the needs of those areas and the communities surrounding them, and how can you, you know, bring those communities out to kind of reflect the kind of environment that exists within that space? And I think that is where we need to go, and bring in the everyday man into the conversation as well, because for far too long the policymakers believe that they have all the answers, and none of us have all the answers, none of us. And we must be, you know, continuous learners, as I would put it, because we never know everything that we think we can know. And as such, we have to believe that as individuals, we have to keep learning each and every day, reinvent, reinvest, and reintroduce ourselves to things that we never thought that were relevant to the conversation. And I think that's where we need to go.
Apple, you have about 30 seconds. Final word.
My final word is that there's no one fix to it. I made a point earlier: heal the family, heal the nation. That is a way to do it. But the question goes into, what if you can heal a family? But the reality is that that is what is happening. If you can't heal a family, we're going to have a broken nation. And you know, you're gonna have a broken nation full of broken men. That is weird. One of the things that I've observed about females, females have their things. I will love them. But one of the females, that the females is not afraid to open their mouth and they speak. That is where men need to be. We need to create that society, you and me, where we just talk. You understand me? Protecting our mental health. Have that conversation. We are going through something, find out a trusted brother who can just reason it out, because never underestimate the power of a conversation. The conversation create journey, it build relationships, it create partnerships, and that is where we need to be. Let us just be real, let us be open up and us having that conversation. And that is just my 30 seconds. There's much more I can say, but it goes back to, let us find some way, some way to try to heal the family. If we can heal a family, the less we have a broken nation, less we have broken men. That is my bit.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Chad Rattray was here with us earlier, as well as Appleton and Gordon and Ado Sherrington. Really stimulating discussion. And I tell you what, for this International Men's Day, obviously appropriate for an all male cast to have this discussion. But I tell you what, I think this is a discussion that's not supposed to be only held once a year, but with the different stakeholders, different individuals or leaders, and of course, women to be a part of this discussion as how we're going to be helping our young men and men overall to be constructive in our society. It has been an absolute pleasure hosting this event, and thank you all for joining us. Before we go, the person who actually has the final say, Mr. McCoy Morrison, first year UE Township Scholar Faculty of Social Sciences. He has the vote of thanks. McCoy?
Happy International Men's Day, everyone. I would just like to say this was a very entertaining discussion. I really, really was interested in the thoughts that was taking place. So let me wrap this up. First of all, I would like to thank the host of this program, Mr. Orv. Sorry. Sorry, I don't know what's. Hello, are you hearing me? So I would like Mr. Oliver, as you did a really truly smooth transition of this program. I really liked it how you allowed each persons to be very interactive in this discussion. So I'd like to say a job well done to you, sir. On the behalf of the entire male body of the University of the West Indies and other viewers on the different platforms, I would like to thank our most honorable panelists, Mr. Rattray. He's not here, but I would like to send out a thanks to him. Mr. Gordon, Mr. Charrington, I hope I said your name properly, because this program wouldn't be complete without your present and your inspirational words of encouragement to us as men, because a lot of times we forgot our values, we forget what we stand for within our society. And the more we lose sight of this, the weaker our society becomes. And a lot of persons don't see that. I just want to touch upon some quick points that you guys made that I think would stick with a lot of the young men who are viewing this right now. What stand out to me was the term level up. I believe in that a lot because a lot of us tend to stay on the same level and we don't empower ourselves. Also changing the narrative, because I think no matter where you are in life, you can always change the outcome of things. And also going through diversions, because we forgot that a lot of distractions are gonna come our way and we need to change a lot of this with ourselves. I would also like to express a heartfelt gratitude to all the guests who are present on the different platforms, whether by Zoom or YouTube. And I would also like to thank Ms. Harris and her team at the Mona Social Services, and also Ms. Lorman and her team at the Commuting Students Office for completing this program for Men's International Day, because this was something that I've seen done in a very short time. And during this pandemic, where a lot of us are not interacting and socializing with each other, a program like this provide us with a way of discussing and learning, even though we're confined to our homes. So I would like to thank you all for a program well done. And with that, I would just like to say this: we are the future leaders of this new generation, and we are the representation of the future. We must know what is success and what it means to us. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mr. Oliver, Mr. Gordon, Mr. Charrington, and I realize that Mr. Rattray is gone, but I just like to say thanks. Really on behalf of the Commuting Students Office and Mona Social Services, this was a well thought out conversation. To think that we didn't know that it would go in this direction, and pulling on so many different areas and points and pouring into the young men on this platform and those joining on YouTube as well. And I'm sure that when persons watch this video again, they would be enriched with the information that was provided and just feel empowered to move on. So happy International Men's Day again to you all, and thanks for being a part of this forum.
Thanks for having me.
All right, take care.
All the best.